Sarnak needed a holiday. He had come to the end of a chapter in his work, and wished to brace himself for a new beginning. Sunray had long hoped to be away with him. She, too, was at a phase in her work when interruption was possible, and so the two went off together to wander among the lakes and mountains. Their companionship was at a very delightful stage. Their close relationship and their friendship was of old standing, so that they were quite at their ease with one another, yet they were not too familiar to have lost the keen edge of their interest in each other's proceedings. Sunray was very much in love with Sarnak, and Sarnak was always happy when Sunray was near him. Sunray was the richer-hearted and cleverer lover. They talked of everything in the world but Sarnak's work, because they had to rest and grow fresh again. Of her own work Sunray talked abundantly. She had been making stories and pictures of happiness and sorrow in the past ages of the world, and she was full of curious speculations about the ways in which the ancestral mind has thought and felt. They played with boats upon the great lake for some days. They sailed and paddled and drew up their canoe among the sweet-scented rushes of the islands and bathed and swam. They went from one guest house to another upon the water and met many interesting and refreshing people. An old man of 98 staying in one house was one of them. He was amusing his declining years by making statuettes of great beauty and humor. It was wonderful to see the clay take shape in his hands. Moreover, he had a method of cooking the lake fish that was very appetizing, and he made a great dish of them so that everyone who was dining in the place could have some. And there was a musician who made Sunray talk about the days gone by, and afterwards he played music with his own hands on a clavier to express the ancient feelings of men. He played one piece that was, he explained, 200 years old. It was by a man named Chopin, and it was called the Revolutionary Etude. Sunray could not have believed a piano capable of such passionate resentment. After that he played grotesque and angry battle music and crude marching tunes from those half-forgotten times, and then he invented passionate music of his own. Sunray sat under a golden lantern and listened to the musician and watched his nimble hands, but Sarnak was more deeply moved. He had not heard very much music in his life, and this player seemed to open shutters upon deep and dark and violent things that had long been closed to mankind. Sarnak sat, cheek on hand, his elbow on the parapet of the garden wall, looking across the steely blue of the lake. The sky had been starry, but a monstrous crescent of clouds like a hand that closes was now gathering all the stars into its fist of darkness. Perhaps there would be rain tomorrow. The lanterns hung still, except that ever and again a little shiver of the air set them swaying. Now and then a great white moth would come fluttering out of the night and beat about among the lanterns for a time and pass away. Presently it would return again, or another moth like it would come. Sometimes there would be 3 or 4 of these transitory phantoms. They seemed to be the only insects outside that night. A faint ripple below drew his attention to the light of a boat, a round yellow light like a glowing orange. There was the sound of a paddle being shipped, and a diminishing drip of water, but the people in the boat sat still and listened until the musician had done altogether. Then they came up the steps to the terrace and asked the master of the guest house for rooms for the night. They had dined at a place farther up the lake. 4 people came by this boat. 2 were brother and sister, dark handsome people of southern origin. And the others were beautiful women, one blue-eyed and one with red eyes, who were clearly very much attached to the brother and sister. They came and talked about the music and about a climbing expedition they had promised themselves in the great mountains above the lakes. The brother and sister were named Radiant and Starlight, and their work in life, they explained, was to educate animals. The 2 beautiful girls, Willow and Firefly, were electricians. During the last few days Sunray had been looking ever and again at the glittering snowfields and desiring them. She joined very eagerly in the mountain talk, and it was presently suggested that she and Sarnak should accompany these new acquaintances up to the peaks they had in mind. But before they went on to the mountains, she and Sarnak wanted to visit some ancient remains that had recently been excavated in a valley that came down to the lake from the east. These 4 newcomers were interested in what she told them about these ruins, and altered their own plans to go with her and Sarnak to see them. Then afterwards, all 6 would go into the mountains.